On this Halloween night, you find yourself sitting around a campfire with your friends. And what else do people do on Halloween at a campfire in the woods after dark? They tell scary stories. Let me tell you the story my friend told me on one such night. On a crisp autumn evening, much like this one, was a group of teenage friends. The spirit of Hallows Eve was very much in the air, as the smell of hay-stuffed scarecrows and pumpkin pies wafted from every household. And there was mischief afoot as well. Little packs of children, clothed in cute costumes, were parading door to door, asking for candy. But this group of friends were not seeking candy, no. They wanted something spooky. Every town has their scary stories, their cryptids and their myths. You may recall the one from your own hometown. But for this village, there was a very particular tale that all teenagers had heard. The story of the Harbinger's Wail. During Hallows Eve, the veil between this world and the next is thinned. Ghosts and ghouls are more likely to be seen, and this includes the Harbinger. Who is she? Well, her origins go something like this. A woman from long ago was brought here for an arranged marriage to some wealthy man. She and her family had been invited to this man's castle as a means to get to know each other. But as soon as she arrived, it seemed like luck had turned against her. Vases fell off pedestals, and milk would sour whenever she took a sip. But perhaps worst of all, she was slowly falling in love with her arranged groom. He, however, did not love her. The marriage was purely political for him, and while her parents urged her that love would come with time, the woman knew that her curse would keep her in an unhappy marriage. She prayed to her God to help her, to undo whatever bad luck she had been saddled with. She pleaded with her parents to call off the arrangement. Both were silent. Slowly, the woman began to starve, as food spoiled and liquids caused her to vomit. As her body thinned, so did her sanity. Her skin grew sickly, her once voluptuous frame became frail, and her smiling optimism bloomed into resentment and malice. As the people of the town began to notice her physical changes and her uncanny air, they ridiculed her. Children would point and laugh. Adults would gossip and shuffle away, just to stay out of her range of her unlucky aura. What few friends she had managed to make upon her arrival quickly abandoned her. Soon she was alone, truly alone, and her rage grew. Feeling abandoned by her friends, her family, and her God, she turned to more sinister sources of aid. One night, the woman was spotted in a long white nightgown, walking to the old excommunicated church. This church had long been abandoned, kept standing by some otherworldly willpower. The last person to see her alive witnessed the skeletal woman open the doors and disappear inside. The night was concerningly quiet from then on. And the next morning, when the woman was found missing, they searched the church. Her parents, desperate to secure the political marriage, scoured every plank and brick of the building, to no avail. The only sign of her was a scrap of her nightgown. However, it was blackened and smelled of smoke, as if it had burned. The local authorities, secretly relieved that such a harbinger of misfortune had vanished, ruled it as a suicide and ceased their searching. The parents of the woman were distraught at the loss of their bargaining chip. The woman's betrothed was elated. He raised a toast to the removal of his marital shackles. No longer would he have to live with such a disaster. Unbeknownst to both parties at the time, Darkness had once again fallen on the town, and out of that church erupted a shriek. A cry so loud and so shrill, any who were asleep were immediately awoken, and anyone already awake felt their heartbeats briefly stop. This was the cry of a wronged spirit, someone who had been cursed for seemingly no reason, and the town had abandoned her in her time of need. And so she was taken, transformed, into something more ghastly than an already emaciated and tortured woman. The screaming continued, and out of the cold and gusty woods limped something not of this world. A figure covered in a long black cloak began a ghoulish march to the town. Its arms and legs elongated and spindly, as if stretched on some medieval rack. Long and bony fingers and claw-curved toes peeked out from the black cloak as it shambled. The very sight of such a thing made the entire town reach for their crosses and shutter their windows. As it moved through the town, it made sound like bones being ground on stone. Tiles would slip off rooftops. Lit candles turned to smoking wicks that refused to light. Pets and livestock alike would begin to dry heave and vomit whenever it came near. And at least one of the townsfolk had a heart attack and died that night. But the creature's target was the home of the betrothed. It hunched through the front door, seemingly immune to its locked status. Strange screams continued to emanate from the cloaked monster, one that seemed to rattle the bones of any who heard it. The thing crept through the hallways, scratching the stone as it went. It arrived at the parents' room first. Its bony hand wrapped around the doorframe as it crept in. What they saw was not their daughter, but a horse skull with sharp wolf teeth. Its jaws open in an uncanny smile. Out of the eye sockets glowed a pale light. The mother slipped into a coma instantly at the mere sight of the thing. The father had a heart attack and died within moments. Both were found with a strange alchemical symbol clawed into their throats, and their eyes clawed out in a most beastly manner. But that would not be discovered until sunrise, and the night was not yet over. Into the betrothed man's bedroom stalked the horror from the woods. We do not know what exactly happened that night in that room, but here's what the authorities found the next morning. Blood everywhere, on the ceiling, the floor, and the bed. The man was found with eyes forcibly removed. His tongue had been bitten off. His heart was pulled out of his chest and replaced with a black mass covered in strange ooze. And perhaps worst of all, the remainder of his organs had been pulled out, one by one, bitten, and then scattered across the room. The man's corpse was growing green and rotten abnormally quick, and the alchemical symbol reappeared on the dried, bloody walls of the room. The creature was never officially seen again, but stories about the woman and that horrific night continued to circulate for 200 years. Just as the story persisted, so did that infamous church. And this is where our intrepid protagonist headed on this Halloween night. The road to the old Harbinger's church is a straight shot on a flat gravel road. There they were, walking on this road, armed with flashlights and a Ouija board, ready for a night of self-made spooks. As they walked, they told stories and laughed like good friends do, until their energy dwindled to nothing. They walked in silence. Only then did they come upon the old church. Miles away from town sat this old, dilapidated building, barely a church-shaped thing, and graffitied all over. Their flashlights cautiously search each brick and plank for signs of the legendary Harbinger. At first, one of them jumps and screams. The others look at what is illuminated by the flashlight, and in their initial horror, they scream too. A skeleton is laid on what was the church's altar. But upon closer inspection, the group sees that this was just a plastic decoration, certainly placed there to scare adventurous teenagers like themselves. And then, behind the altar, they see a bit of black cloth. Their flashlights move up, following the cloth, and then they see it. A horse skull wrapped in black. It starts to move towards them, and the teenagers turn to run. But before they can get very far, a familiar face appears underneath the mask, laughing. A friend from school who apologizes for their prank going a little too well. After a thorough lecture, their prankster friend joins them. But the building really is just an old creaky church from centuries ago. They soon get bored and start to leave. And that's when they hear her. Deeper in the woods, there's a shuffling noise. The group turns and shines their flashlight in the direction of the movement. There, in the distance, is a figure. It's too far away to make out its features. One of the friends asks if the prankster had an accomplice. The prankster mumbles no. And then the screaming starts. An ear-grating and horrifying sound that echoes through the empty woods. The teenagers run for their lives down the gravel road. By the time they make it back to their car, they're panting and sweating and pale. They frantically try to start their car, to no avail. The engine refuses to turn over, and the tires begins to deflate. The wail is still audible in the distance, but their panicked minds swear the sound is getting closer. The car finally starts, and the driver floors it, leaving tire marks on the road as they speed away. The next day at school, the whole group is quiet. The sound of the Harbinger's wail echoes through their minds. They're distracted, easily startled, and seemingly attracting all sorts of bad luck. Activating sprinkler systems, tripping on nothing, causing technology to malfunction, and many other little instances plagued the group. And then, a symbol appears on one of the teens' notebooks. They say it's a simple doodle done during a boring lecture. But upon further investigation, the symbol was found to be alchemical in nature. Then the symbol started popping up everywhere. Freshly graffitied on old walls, drawn absent-mindedly on failed report cards, and written in chalk on the elementary school playground. No one knew what it meant, but the group of teenagers knew exactly where it came from. And as the days dragged on, their misfortune continued and worsened. They were silently going mad, realizing that the Harbinger had cursed them and that there was no way out. It tormented them for weeks and weeks, slowly making their lives more and more miserable, until they got together and decided to return to the church. And so, one by one, they entered the church, walking through the rotting wood door, never to be seen again. But what was once a single scream became a cacophony, and if you hear those screams, you know it's already too late. Happy Halloween. And that's my tale. What did you guys think?